Would you like to talk about your uniform a little bit?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit.
Please, go ahead.
There's a reproduction of the 9th Hawkins Zouaves, which you see in the case there. It's taken from, the original uniforms and put together. And they wore different types of uniforms. This here was a dress uniform that they would fight in. Also, they would march in, do their parades and everything like that. And then when they would be in camp, they would change over to another blue uniform that you typically see, a regular uniform with forage cap. They would do this here, marching in that. They were consistently doing drills. The type of uniform it is, it's a French, Algerian Zouave uniform from Northern Africa. And it has a different type of false pockets here. And it has a sash that will go around the back. And it's copied from the Northern African tribes that were out in Algeria. And the French would come in there, so it's a French-style Zouave uniform. And it's partially connected to the 14th Brooklyn, the militia. They call those uniforms Schwarzer. So it was a very important part of the history of the uniforms came from the French extraction in that from Northern Africa. So the fez that I'm wearing is a reproduction, and my ancestor Charles Wyman and his brother William were in Company H, 9th New York, and they wore this type of fez. This is a hard type of fez that they wore, and he also wore a different type that was soft. An infantry horn is here, and they would have their company that they would be in. And I have also a reproduction of a 9th Hawkins Zouave belt buckle. You can see it says NYZ. The original that it was copied from was actually Company C, but I've heard that there was others there, so I made it up in my ancestors' regiment and put H on there, which he probably wore too. They also had an ordnance and also U.S. belt buckle. And these are gaiters that they would wear, and it came very handy today when we went out in the brush, and I was catching up like that. Now I know why they wear these things. So they wear that, and then brogans, and they had this here vest, which when they would take the jacket off, they would still be in dress. So if you just have a bare shirt, that would be your undressed. So they make sure that they're dressed. It's a hot uniform because it's wool, but it does breathe. Right? When I was out there and the wind was blowing through, I could still feel it, but it's still hot. You got to remember, there was more casualties because of the weather and disease than actually in battle. So this is a cap box where they would have, with their little caps, they would put on their muskets. And this is a cartridge box that's in the back here, which they carry 40 rounds of ammunition. They would have to take the cartridge, bite it off, put it into their gun, jam it down, and ramrod on the side there. A good soldier would do with 3 shots in a minute that they could get off. So as they're loading, the enemy a lot of times would come up on them. They would get very excited and actually forget to even fire the gun and reload it again. And they found guns that had several rounds in them and never were fired in battle. And also the ramrod was in the gun, and they actually fired it sometimes at the enemy, and the recipient of that ramrod, it was like an arrow that was going through the air. But they were able to do this here, and they made sure that they were good in drill and that. And Hawkins Zouaves were very particular the way they marched and what they did. They wanted to be special. The Zouaves were a special unit in a sense, but they were actually regular soldiers that had very high esteem.
They spent hours training to load and fire, laying down on their back.
Yes, they did.
They would fire.
All day long they would do these here marches and also firing.
There was a special Zouave drill that
Yes,
Elmer
that's
Ellsworth.
what they did. Ellsworth used to go
Right.
around the country and actually, challenge any other Zouaves or any other groups firing, doing their drills, marksmanship, and that's actually before the Civil War. He would do that. There were Zouave cadets. So, and then Hawkins Zouaves were actually formed up in 1860, and they were like a military, a unit. It was called New York Zouaves, and they were in Lower Manhattan. It was made up of 3 companies of men. And Rush Hawkins, when the war broke out, Rush Hawkins went up to Albany and tried to get the governor's approval for setting up another, 7 companies and make it a full regiment. And by the time he got back from the governor saying it was okay, 9 New York was already forming up and signing up, and my great-great-grandfather and his brother, William, they signed up, and there was around 3,000 men that actually tried to sign up with the Hawkins Zouaves. So, and it was only like 700 openings. And Charles and William were one of the, I don't know if the lucky ones, but one of the ones that got into the unit and survived.
Survive.
Thank you.
Survive would be incredible.
Otherwise, I
Thank
wouldn't be
you.
here today.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay.